Maybe it was the night James slammed the door for the last time, leaving only the faint scent of his cologne and the echo of his anger. Or maybe it was before that, years before, when I realized we had become nothing more than polite strangers, orbiting the same home but never truly touching. Whatever the moment, I missed it. One day I just woke up, and the weight of my life felt unbearable. I stayed in bed for weeks after he left. The world outside continued as if nothing had happened, as if my world hadn't shattered. The blinds remained drawn, the air stale. I couldn't bring myself to care about eating, about showering, about the dishes piling up in the sink. The phone rang but I never picked it up. Friends reached out, but I couldn't muster the energy to respond. I existed in a haze, drifting somewhere between sleep and waking, where time lost all meaning. Robert was the only one who stayed. My son, my sweet boy. At 22. He should have been out living his life, laughing with his friends, losing himself in the kind of love that still had promise. Instead he was here, taking care of me. I remember the way he knocked softly on my bedroom door, never pushing, always patient. How he would leave food on my nightstand, sandwiches, soup, sometimes my favorite tea, without a word. Some nights, I would hear the shuffle of his footsteps as he checked to make sure I was still breathing. "You have to eat, Mom," he would say, sitting on the edge of the bed. He never scolded, never pressured. He just looked at me with those steady brown eyes, the same eyes he had as a boy, and I hated myself for making him worry. Sometimes I would eat, just to ease the sadness in his face. Other times I would turn away, staring at the wall. I could feel myself fading. Then one morning, I opened my eyes to sunlight peeking through the curtains. The room smelled of coffee. Robert was standing by the window, watching the world outside. He turned when he heard me stir, offering a small, tired smile. "You're awake," he said. I swallowed, my throat dry. "Yeah." For the first time in weeks I sat up. He handed me a cup of coffee, still warm. I took it, feeling the weight of the ceramic in my hands, the warmth seeping into my skin. It was such a small thing, but it felt like something. After that I started moving again little by little. Showered. I stepped outside for the first time in months, blinking against the brightness of the sun. Robert stayed close, as if afraid I might disappear again. "Do you need anything?" he would ask, always watching me. I would shake my head. But I needed him. More than I wanted to admit. And then, just when I thought we were finding some kind of balance again, Robert broke up with Christina. I found out by accident. It was late. I had gone downstairs to make tea when I heard him talking in the living room. His voice was low, tired. I peeked around the corner and saw him sitting on the couch, phone in his hand. "It's not working, Chris," he was saying. His fingers pressed against his forehead. I don't know what else to say. Long one. Then he sighed. "I'm sorry." I crept back upstairs, my heart heavy. The next morning, I found him in the kitchen, staring blankly at his coffee. "You okay?" "Yes." He glanced up, surprised. For a second, I saw the exhaustion in his face. Then he nodded, forcing a smile. I'm fine." He wasn't. I knew that kind of pain too well. The kind that settled in your chest like a weight, making it hard to breathe. The kind that made you question everything. For so long, he had been the one taking care of me. I didn't know how to take care of him in return. So I did what he had done for me. Stayed. I made his favorite breakfast the next morning, the smell of bacon filling the house. He raised an eyebrow when he walked into the kitchen, surprised to see me at the stove. "You cooked." I did. I slid a plate in front of him. "Eat." He hesitated, then sat down, picking at the food. I watched as he slowly took a bite. 4 days, neither of us spoke about it. He carried his sadness the way I had carried mine. Silently, privately. But he didn't hide from me. And I didn't hide from him. One night we sat on the couch together, watching some movie neither of us cared about. He leaned his head back, staring at the ceiling. "I thought she was the one," he admitted, his voice raw. I looked at him, my heart aching. "I know." Silence stretched between us, thick with everything we didn't say. Then, finally he turned to me. "I don't regret taking care of you," he said softly. "Even when it was hard." I blinked, startled. "I just wanted you to know that." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Thank you." He nodded, his gaze holding mine. And for the first time in a long time I felt something close to whole. I hesitated before saying yes. When Robert asked me to go with him on his business trip, I almost refused. It felt strange, filling the space where Christina should have been. But the way he asked, so casually like it was the most natural thing in the world, made it difficult to say no. "Come on, Mom," he had said with a grin. "It'll be fun. Just a quick trip. Besides, I could use the company. And I wanted to be there for him. So I agreed. The drive was surprisingly fun. Robert had always loved road trips, and he had a playlist ready before we even pulled out of the driveway. We sang along to songs from when he was a kid, laughing at how off-key we both were. The miles slipped away beneath us, and for the first time in a long time I felt light. Somewhere along the way, exhaustion crept in. The gentle hum of the car, the rhythmic passing of trees, and Robert's steady presence lulled me into a kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. Without realizing it, I drifted off, my head resting against the seat. Robert must have noticed because the next time I stirred, I caught him glancing at me. I blinked, still half asleep. "What?" He quickly turned his eyes back to the road, clearing his throat. "Nothing. You were just sleeping." I rubbed my eyes, yawning. "Sorry. I didn't mean to." "It's okay," he said, voice softer this time. "You looked peaceful." I didn't ask what he meant by that. But for the rest of the drive, I noticed the way he glanced at me now and then, like he was seeing me differently. When we arrived at the hotel, the problem became obvious. "There's only one bed," Robert said, staring at the room. I let out a breath, stepping inside. The room was nice, clean, spacious, with a big window overlooking the city. But yes, there was only one bed. No couch. No extra cot. The hotel must have assumed we were a couple. I let out a nervous laugh. "I'll call the front desk. Maybe they can switch us." Robert shut the door behind us, dropping his bag onto the chair. "It's late. They probably don't have anything else available." He was right. I called, and the receptionist apologized, saying the hotel was fully booked. When I hung up, Robert raised an eyebrow. "Guess we're stuck with this, huh?" I exhaled, rubbing my temples. "We can ask for extra blankets. One of us can sleep on the floor." Robert scoffed. "Come on, Mom. It's just a bed. We'll sleep on opposite sides. No big deal." I hesitated. It shouldn't have been a big deal. But something about this, about the past few months, about how close we'd become, about the way Robert had looked at me in the car, made my chest tighten. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I was imagining things. I forced a smile. "All right. Just, no stealing the blankets." Robert smirked. "No promises." Later that night, after we both showered and changed, we climbed into bed. I turned onto my side, keeping a respectful distance, staring at the soft glow of the city lights outside the window. Robert lay still beside me, silent for a long time. Then, in the quiet, he spoke. "You know, I'm glad you came with me." I turned slightly, looking at him in the dim light. His face was relaxed, his expression unreadable. "Me too," I admitted. His eyes met mine. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then Robert reached up, tucking a loose strand of hair behind my ear. It was such a small, simple gesture, but something about it sent a shiver down my spine. I swallowed. "Robert." "Good night, Mom," he murmured. I turned away, my heart pounding in my chest. And that night, sleep didn't come easily. Time with Robert passed by. We felt an ever-increasing closeness between us. I found everything in Robert. He was my haven. It all started gradually. At first, Robert's brief glances turned into longer ones. Then he started giving me compliments I shouldn't have. And eventually, Robert's confession hung in the air between us, filling the room with something thick and unspoken. I could still hear the tremor in his voice as he exhaled sharply after saying it, as if he had been holding his breath for years. "I love you." I imagined 100 different ways this night could unfold, but I never saw it happen. Not from him. Not from Robert. I swallowed hard, my fingers tightening their grip on the coffee cup in my hands. Warmth seeped into my skin, grounding me just as everything inside me wanted to fly away, to pretend I hadn't heard him say it. Robert sat across from me, his posture tense, his hands clasped together, as if he were afraid of what I might say. He was always steady, patient, attentive, never too pushy. But tonight he looked vulnerable, something I'd never seen him before. I opened my mouth to speak, but there were no words. Because how could I answer when I didn't even understand what I was feeling? "Say something," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. I forced myself to meet his eyes. The same brown eyes with which I had watched childish wonder transform into human confidence. They were searching me now, waiting. My voice trailed off. I cleared my throat and tried again. Robert, I don't know what to say. A small, sad smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. I know. There was a silence between us, filled only by the ticking of the clock on the wall. I wanted to rewind, to take us back to when he said those words, to when everything was different. But time never moves backward. I put down my coffee, my fingers shaking slightly. This is difficult. He nodded. I know. His gaze never wavered, and it was that unwavering patience that confused me. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't demand an answer. He just told me the truth. And Robert and I could never hide the truth from each other. I don't want to lose you, I confessed, barely audibly. You won't. I shuddered, looking away. You say that, but nothing will ever be the same again. Maybe not, he agreed, leaning forward, his elbows on his knees. But I couldn't keep pretending. Not with you. I wanted to tell him he was wrong. That he had imagined this feeling, that it was something else. A misplaced sense of devotion, an echo of the care he had shown me when I was at my worst. But deep down I knew it wasn't true. 'Cause I felt it too. I felt it in the way my heart began to beat differently when he entered the room. In the way I reached for his presence, unconsciously, instinctively. The thought of him leaving sent a sharp pain through my ribs. A pain I didn't want to name. And maybe I always knew. But knowing and accepting are two different things. I stood up abruptly, needing distance. I need time. Robert exhaled slowly, nodding. Take as much time as you need. He didn't try to stop me as I walked away. And as I climbed the stairs to my room, I realized I wasn't running away from him. I was running away from myself. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall, my thoughts tangled like the sheets I hadn't bothered to straighten that morning. Robert loved me. The words kept repeating in my mind, reshaping themselves each time, taking on new meaning. How long had he felt this way? Had I missed the signs? Or had I ignored them, afraid of what they might mean? I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breath. This wasn't something I could process in one night. This wasn't something I could untangle easily. The house was quiet now, save for the occasional creak of the old floorboards as Robert moved downstairs. I wondered if he was still sitting in the living room, nursing his untouched coffee, replaying our conversation the same way I was. I lay back against the pillows, but sleep never came. Morning arrived too soon, the sun creeping in through the blinds like an uninvited guest. I rolled onto my side, eyes bleary, body heavy with exhaustion. For a moment I thought about staying in bed, avoiding the inevitable. But I had done that before after James left. I had let the weight of my grief pull me under, and Robert had been the one to pull me back. I owed him more than silence. Pulling on a sweater, I made my way downstairs, my footsteps slow, deliberate. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air. Robert's doing, of course. He was at the kitchen counter, his back to me, pouring himself a cup. He looked almost normal, as if last night hadn't changed everything. But I knew better. He must have heard me enter because he turned, offering me a small smile. Morning. I nodded, moving toward the fridge, needing something to do with my hands. Morning. I felt his eyes on me as I poured myself a glass of water, as I leaned against the counter, as I tried to pretend this wasn't the most awkward morning of my life. Finally I sighed. Robert, we need to talk. I know. He pulled out a chair, gesturing for me to sit. I hesitated before taking the seat across from him. He was calm, patient as always. But there was something else in his expression now, an openness I wasn't sure I was ready for. I ran a hand through my hair. Last night. I meant every word, he said simply. I let out a shaky breath. No. And that's what scares me. His brow furrowed slightly. Scares you? Yes, I admitted, my voice softer now. Because if I let myself feel this, if I let myself believe this, it changes everything. Robert leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table. Andrea, I don't want to make things harder for you. But I also can't pretend anymore. I swallowed. How long? How long have I felt this way? His lips curved into a sad smile. Longer than I want to admit. My heart clenched. Why didn't you say anything? Because you were hurting. His voice was steady, but there was something raw beneath it. Because I didn't want you to feel like you owed me anything. I didn't want to be another weight on your shoulders. I looked down at my hands, twisting them together. You've never been a weight, Robert. If anything, you were the only reason I got out of bed some days. He exhaled, his fingers gripping the edge of the table. Then why does this feel like something you're running from? I looked up, meeting his gaze. Because it is. The truth tasted bitter on my tongue. Robert didn't flinch. He just nodded like he understood, like he always did. And what are you running from, Andrea? He asked softly. I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come. I passed. The wreckage of my failed marriage. The fear of feeling something again, only to lose it. I stood abruptly, needing space. I need time. You said that last night, Robert said. His voice gentle but firm. But time isn't going to change how I feel. And I don't think it's going to change how you feel either. I froze, my back to him. I see it, Andrea. The way you look at me when you think I don't notice. The way you reach for me before stopping yourself. You're scared, and I get that. But don't lie to yourself. Tears burned at the edges of my vision. I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't ready to acknowledge the part of me that had already fallen. I can't, I whispered, shaking my head. Robert didn't try to stop me as I walked out of the kitchen, my heart pounding against my ribs. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I tried to lose myself in tasks, laundry, cleaning, mindless distractions, but no matter what I did, my thoughts kept circling back to him, to what he said, to what I felt. By the time the sun began to set, I found myself sitting on the back porch, a cup of tea growing cold in my hands. I heard the door creak open behind me, followed by the familiar sound of Robert's footsteps. He didn't sit beside me. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, waiting. I took a deep breath. I don't know how to do this. Then let me show you, he said. His words sent a shiver down my spine. I turned to face him, my heart in my throat. I don't want to hurt you. You won't. His confidence scared me. Because I wasn't sure he was right. Robert took a step closer, his gaze never leaving mine. Andrea, I'm not asking for an answer right now. I just want you to stop pretending this isn't real. My chest ached with the weight of it all. But for the first time I let myself wonder. What if? What if I stopped fighting? What if I let myself believe in this? In him. The thought alone terrified me. But when Robert reached out, his fingers brushing mine, I didn't pull away. Not this time. The moment my fingers curled around Robert's, something inside me unraveled. I had spent so long gripping my fears, clutching them tightly to my chest like a lifeline, convinced that love, real, deep, terrifying love, was something I was no longer capable of. But here he was, Robert, the one person who had stayed. The one person who had seen me at my worst and still looked at me like I was worth something. And I loved him. I always had. I just hadn't let myself see it. I turned my hand in his, threading my fingers between his own, holding on to him the way he had always held on to me. When I looked up, I found him watching me, waiting, his breath steady, but his eyes were anything but calm. There was something raw there, something fragile beneath the patience he always wore like armor, a hope that I had the power to either nurture or shatter. I squeezed his hand. I'm not running anymore. A breath left him, slow, controlled. But I could feel the slight tremor in his fingers as he held on to me like he didn't quite believe this was real. You sure? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, a small smile tugging at my lips. Yeah. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt weightless. Robert exhaled a short, shaky laugh and pulled me forward. His arms circling around me, wrapping me in warmth. I melted into him without hesitation, my head resting against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart. For so long I had convinced myself that love was a risk too great to take. That if I opened myself up again, I would only end up broken. But standing here, held in Robert's arms, I realized something. I wasn't falling. I was being caught. That night we didn't talk about the future. We didn't make promises or try to define what this was. We simply existed in it. We cooked dinner together the way we always did, but this time everything felt different. Every glance was charged with meaning. Every brush of our hands was deliberate. And for once, I didn't shy away from it. When Robert laughed, I let myself fall in love with the sound. When he touched my shoulder, guiding me past him in the kitchen, I let myself lean into the warmth. And when he reached for my hand under the dinner table, I laced my fingers through his without hesitation. No more second-guessing. No more running. Just this. Just us. The days that followed were quiet, easy in the way love should be. Robert never rushed me, never pushed. He let me come to him, let me figure out how to exist in this new version of us. One morning, as I stood by the window, coffee in hand, I felt him come up behind me, his arms slipping around my waist. I smiled, tilting my head slightly as he rested his chin on my shoulder. "Morning," he murmured, his voice still thick with sleep. I leaned back into him, savoring the weight of his body against mine. "Morning." We stood there in silence for a while, watching the world wake up outside. The trees swayed gently in the breeze, the golden sunlight spilling through the leaves, casting shifting patterns on the floor. It was such a small moment, but it felt like everything. Robert pressed a kiss to the side of my neck, soft and lingering. "You okay?" I turned in his arms, my hands resting lightly on his chest. "I think I really am." His smile was slow, unfolding like something he had been waiting a long time to show me. "Good." I traced my fingers along the edge of his jaw, marveling at the fact that I could do this now. Touch him freely, without fear or hesitation. "Did you ever think this would happen?" His hand slid to my waist, pulling me just a little closer. "I hoped." I kissed him then, right there in the quiet of the morning, with the sunlight streaming in and the coffee growing cold on the windowsill. No fear. No doubt. Just love. Years later, time didn't change the way I loved Robert. It only made it stronger. Our life together became something I hadn't dared to dream of before. Something warm, steady, filled with laughter and quiet moments that meant everything. There were still challenges, of course. Life had a way of throwing storms at us when we least expected it. But this time I wasn't facing them alone. One evening, as we sat on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Robert reached over and took my hand. "Still happy?" he asked, his voice teasing. I turned to him, my heart swelling at the sight of him. The man who had once been the only thing keeping me afloat, now the anchor I never wanted to let go of. I squeezed his hand. "Happier than I ever thought I could be." He smiled, lifting my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles. "Good. Because I'm never letting you go." And he never did.